Alrighty, welcome to episode 213 of Tokwa's Ask Us Anything. As usual, it's been a pretty busy news week. Tesla has ended its launch edition refreshed Model Y series and now replaced it with its standard refreshed range. Deliveries for these cars ordered today are expected in June. Tesla's Shanghai Megafactory has celebrated the dispatch of its first batch of Megapacks, which are currently being shipped to an unspecified customer in Australia. And that was this week's news. Indeed it was, and once again, welcome to the program. As is customary, if there is anyone who is new and is comfortable in doing so, please do unmute and say hello. Or perhaps a little bit later in the program. Alrighty, who wants to start us off with the discussions or questions? It's a tough audience. All right, I'll start. There is an interesting tweet post, whatever, that came up today actually, which might be a little bit of a green shoot as far as Tesla preparing for supervised FSD in Australia. So I'll just share this screen. And you'll see this is actually a photo of my car. And you do this under service mode and you look at infotainment. And it's basically saying that it's implying that the program that contains autopilot, or the space that autopilot is consuming, is 1.36 gigabytes. Now, and by the way, mine is a hardware or AP3 car. So it's not the current, the latest hardware. Now, there is a post by Rob Greaves, and basically he's saying that on his 2025.2.8.1 software, if you have a look, this car now has 2.6 gigabytes of memory allocated for what is autopilot, or described as autopilot. So what is entirely plausible is that perhaps Tesla are running, as an example, this car with FSD supervised, or a part of FSD supervised, running in shadow mode, which is obviously quite an interesting development. So I wonder if anyone else has got a hardware 4 car and has got hardware 2020, software 2025.2.8. If you want to go into your service mode and have a look at what your memory is, because if it's anything like 2.6 gigs, then it's highly possible that you're running FSD in shadow mode. Now, for those not sure of how to get into service mode, what you do is, let me just see if I can bring up, sorry, just got to go. What you basically do is you go into the software tab in your menu, and you'll see the actual word of your car's model. Like it'll say Model 3, Model Y, even Model X or S. So you press and hold on that description. So whether it's Model Y or Model 3, press and hold, and then you'll see a little menu item come up that says, or a prompt that comes up that says enter code. So then you just enter in the code word service, all lowercase, and hit enter. And then you'll come up with a notification that says, in order to do this, we have to open a portal to Tesla. Is this okay? Blah, blah, blah. And you just say yes. And then you just go, you'll see service mode. There's a red border around your entire screen. And that basically denotes it's in service mode. And you then select infotainment, and then it's about the third item. You can actually see all the memory allocated to the different parts, your infotainment system and autopilot. And yeah, go and see if you happen to have a larger version, bearing in mind this is probably people with Highland Model 3 only, not the older Model 3s, and those with Model Ys that were bought uh, sort of by about the middle of last year onwards and younger. So yeah, go and have a look and see if you've got an Easter egg or two.
Harold, sorry, I'm in that menu now. What am I looking for? It says autopilot hardware full self-driving computer 4. Sorry, I've sort of came at the
Yeah, no,
end of
you've got to
that
go to the
convo.
service menu demo. So you've got to go to software, and then you'll see
Yeah,
that
I'm
there's a
I'm I'm
picture.
in the service menu.
Oh, okay. There should be on the
Yep.
left-hand side of the service menu, there should be a tab called infotainment, something
Yep,
like
I'm in
that.
there.
Click on infotainment, and what menu items do you see?
Speakers, connectivity, display, software, ECU, update
Software,
status.
Software.
software.
Yep. Okay, now it's sort of a CAN bus layout, the car with like box. You got bank A
That's it. That's it.
maps. So what am I looking for there?
So what's the memory? So what does the memory say
Memory.
for autopilot? How many gigabytes? There should be bank one, bank two, and you should have
2.6 gigabytes on bank A, and bank B is 1.65 gigabyte.
that's it. Bingo. So you have the new software. So let me just so you have something like this, 2.6 gigabytes, and you got another bank that has 1.65.
Yep.
So that is something that most people, I think, with Autopilot 3 at the moment will not have or get at the moment.
Yeah,
But
so I've gone into mine and autopilot bank A is 1.4 and bank B is 2.18.
oh,
Yeah,
and is yours a hardware 4 car,
no,
Paul?
hardware 3.
Ah,
Yeah,
right. So then maybe that's having shadow mode as well.
yeah.
Because my car only has 2 point something, whatever I said.
Yeah, cool.
No, 1.36, and the other bank is 1.38.
Yeah.
So that's quite interesting. I'll just bring up how you actually get that. So when you look, I'll just check it actually works. Oh yeah, it does. Okay. So um, all right. So when you look at your menu, if you click the menu button, the little car symbol, you go to software, you'll see on this word Model Y or whatever it is, you just press and hold on that, and that will bring up the the code entry part where you put the word service. So there you go. So it looks like there might be some green shoots or a bit of activity as far as having much larger versions of the autopilot slash FSD stack installed in many of our cars. And Paul, you said yours is hardware 3, so
Yeah,
that's also
hardware 3.
interesting.
Yeah, performance.
Very
Yeah.
good. So
Cool.
who knows? I mean, I don't know whether it means that FSD supervised is weeks away, months away, who knows, days away. Um, I guess time will tell.
Paul, can I
Uh,
ask you in 2024 or 2025 update you've got?
on 2024.
Cool, thank you.
That's
Are
all
you
right.
2024, Paul?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
interesting.
24, 44.25. Yeah. Still waiting.
Oh,
So
sorry. No, that was your Navigate.
no,
No?
no, Navigate is 24.32. Yeah,
So
cool.
your 2024 dot
Yeah,
very,
version 12, so 24.44.25.4.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting because I'm 2025.2.8.2
yeah.
and I've got the smaller image size, so I've missed out. But anyway,
Maybe
and my car does have FSD that I've paid for the third time, but we won't scratch that itch.
no.
I just
So
got
Harold,
update this morning.
Dang, Alex.
2025 2.8.1.
Yep, yep. And Alex, sorry, you were going to say something.
I was going to say something. 2021 Model 3, I'm showing Bank A as 1.4 gigabyte.
Yep, and what about Bank B?
Bank B, 2.18.
Interesting. See, there you go. So
Mm.
we've got some big packages that are being driven around. So
This is cool.
Thank you.
it's you're welcome. So let's see what happens if anything comes of it. I mean, obviously something will come of it eventually because that's what Tesla's stated goal is to bring FSD supervised globally. So once again, that's a bit of green shoot that could be quite promising. So we'll just have to see what happens. Alrighty, on the back of that, has anyone got any ordinary questions or comments on what's happened over the last week or anything with their cars or whatever? Or just a general question?
Well, on the back of that, Harold, it will be interesting to see that old, wager, whether it will be the Cybertruck or FSD supervised that will come to Australia first.
Supervised.
Yeah, it's sort of annoying because there are some very optimistic people that would say, "Oh, Cybertruck must be, maybe only a quarter away or something," and it's like, oh, no,
I wish.
I wish too, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Q2 next year.
That'll be all right. Shares should be there. I should be good. Yep. That sounds good. I'll second that motion.
Speaking of which, it was interesting to see Alan Kohler. Tesla has featured 3 times in a row on his finance segment. And the first segment was on Monday, whereby he said it's tanked. I forget how many percent over the weekend, and 50% since its all-time high. And he was comparing, I think it was sales with BYD. And he must have gotten a bit of heat, and I think he might have been a bit annoyed. And the next day, on Tuesday, obviously Monday night, the shares had gone down further, and or had they? No, maybe they recovered slightly, but he then felt the urge to sort of back up his sort of negative opinion of Tesla by highlighting that BYD's share price has gone up 60% since whatever some time period, and to contrast that with Tesla's fall of 40%, even though it actually gone up. Sorry, it actually gone up. And then tonight, he once again features Tesla because it went up. I forget how many percent it was, 4 or 5% or something.
Yeah, it was a bit. Yeah.
So Tesla's had a bit of a recovery, and
About
perhaps
30% of it.
that's right. I think they were about $220 odd roughly, and Tesla, as we speak now, is at $288, having gone up 3.5% last night. So anyway, it was quite interesting. Perhaps Alan will be more even keeled with Tesla in future, or maybe just report the movements as they are without embellishment. Alrighty. Any other questions or comments? Oh. Come on, we need to have a question because this is Ask Us Anything after all, and I can't just ask my own questions or answer my own questions. Well, I could give it a crack, or we could just go home early.
I chucked one up in the Facebook site today, just around the spare wheels and whether people have got any experience with those temporary third-party spare wheels. I think one person's responded that they've got one, they haven't used it yet. Just wondering if anyone else in the group has used a sort of a space saver spare before.
Yeah, I unfortunately used one for about 2,000 kilometers, It was between south of Alice Springs down to Sejuna, I think it was. And yeah, it works really well. So they come. The most common one to get these days, the cheapest is Braumach. It's
Yep.
BRAUMACH.com.au. I think they're less than $500 if I
Yeah,
recall.
350 plus about $40
Yep.
shipping.
So they come with their own low profile scissor jack. Bearing in mind that we've definitely had one member in particular that's had a suboptimal experience with that jack because of the way the car sort of moves in the direction that you're jacking it. It moves forwards, and you've got to sort of place the jack. You've got to sort of offset that slightly so that once it's jacked up, it actually ends up being straight. Because this gentleman actually had his car fall off the jack, which was certainly suboptimal. But it does come with a complete kit. It's got a wheel brace with multiple nuts, sockets. I think it's got a pair of gloves, safety triangle, a few other things. Comes in the bag. And look, they're perfectly good to use in emergency situations whereby you've got a flat tire in the middle of nowhere. So, yeah, absolutely do the job.
Yeah, I was going to buy an extra wheel from Tesla just so I could have it at home because most of the time, if I've got a flat tire, it'll be in the morning, about to go to the airport, and there's a tire there, So I thought just as an insurance policy, I'd have a Tesla one. And I'm waiting for a price back on what that would be. Has anyone had any experience purchasing a wheel?
I think
It'll be a lot.
is it
Mm.
I bought a rim
1500?
for 350.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say that again, Peter Ship.
I bought a wheel from Tesla themselves for 350. It was a 20-inch.
Okay.
That's cheap. I thought they were a lot more expensive than that.
That's no tire though.
No
No
tire,
tire.
but
Yeah.
just
No
a thing.
tire.
But yeah, it was a good price. The guy gave it to me quite well. Yes.
You need the tire.
Yeah, and you need to just put a
That's
tire on it.
debatable.
But you can get a basic tire. You don't have to have
Correct.
the OEM tire. It's just an
Yeah.
emergency spare, really. To be
Well,
honest.
I just put an old. When I replaced the tires, I put an old one or the best of the old ones on, so that it gets me out of trouble.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely, because really, these days you don't rotate tires through the spare anymore. You just the only way you rotate tires is front to back these days. So the spare is a tire that will hopefully never be used, and if anything, just run out of time as far as its use by date or best before date. So yeah, absolutely. But so I think it was you, Ryan, that asked the
Yeah.
question.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's a matter of personal preference. It's a lot more convenient having the skinny spare in a bag. It's a lot easier to sort of keep in your car. You don't have to cover it in something or wrap it in something. It's already sort of enclosed and clean in that sense. And like I said, I've successfully driven one, with no other backup except for a tire inflator and those unvulcanized tire slugs. And yeah, I've had to do high stakes with no real spare on a car that was partially damaged or whose wheel alignment was badly out due to some damage. And yeah, it worked perfectly well.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah. And by the way, when I had to replace the tire that was basically completely deflated because it had gone past belts, I actually had to get a non-perfectly fitting tire. Like I just got the closest fit, and it was perfectly okay. And that got me back to Perth.
I
Ryan,
have a question, Harold.
Yes, Andy.
Yeah, I'm new to this Zoom, so yeah, I've got a 2017 Model S.
Oh yes,
It's quite an old one.
yes.
The very first time on Saturday, I ran out of charge because I forgot to charge it at home, which I normally do all the time, but I underestimated well, no, I forgot. Well, I got distracted. Of course, it wasn't my fault. I just got distracted. But yeah, I went into town to play golf and thought I had enough, but because it was quite hot, I think by the time I finished golf and was coming home, there wasn't enough to get home. So I noticed that there were some Tesla chargers up at Kings Park, so I went up there. But of course, the connectors are different because my Model S has got Type 2, and they're a whole bank of, I don't know what type they are, but there's no way. And I rang up Tesla and they couldn't help at all. They said, you need to arrange a tow truck to go down to Eton and charge it up there. That was their solution.
No, not at all.
So luckily, I had a mate that was close by, and I got a charging cable that could just run from the 13 amp household electricity. So I left the car overnight there and collected it the next morning. But so I suppose my question is there like a converter that converts from what those
Absolutely, yes.
chargers
So,
have?
yeah, absolutely. So in your Tesla app, have a look, because you'll just have your Model S in there, and look at upgrades and accessories. And it might appear in your app as an upgrade. And what it is a CCS conversion or CCS adapter.
Adapter, okay.
Now, failing that, you can just start a service request and just put in accessories or other, and just put in that you want to purchase a CCS conversion kit
For a Model S. Yeah.
for your Model S. They'll know it's for your Model S because it's obviously originating through your app, which contains the Model S.
Okay.
And I forget the cost. I know when I bought it, it was a lot more than it is now. I think it's hundreds of dollars, but not. I think it's less than $800.
Yeah.
Something of that order. And what it is, it's a two-part process. There's a module that they fit inside the car, so it can interpret the CCS charging standard. And there's a physical adapter, which basically converts this. It's got CCS. It's sort of got CCS on this side, and that plugs. Well, the opposite of this plugs into your car.
Yeah. That's what I have at home. Yeah, something that plugs in. Yeah.
And then what you should do is get some fluoro tape, like retroreflective tape, put it around the body of that adapter, because please don't forget it by leaving it on the CCS plug and reholstering it or whatever back into whatever the equipment is, because otherwise you'll lose it.
Yeah.
And I think they cost several $100s to replace.
But there's way up. The first time I've done it in 8 years, so it's.
But it's certainly worth it, Andy, because if you want to use any of the DC chargers on the WAV network and virtually everything else except for Eton.
Eton has the extra plug, so you could just use the new one.
It's only Eton that has the old.
Yeah, supercharger. Yeah, I have charged it once in Eton. Yeah, when I went down to it.
Yep. So really, I suggest it's a must, because then it means your options are vastly superior. You can fast DC charge all over the place, and you'll never ever get caught again. So yeah, definitely look in your service thing in your car. It's under upgrades. If you have a look, there's a section that says upgrades.
Yep.
The bottom. And
then accessories.
If you go accessories, and
I couldn't see.
It's not listed there.
No,
then just go into service and start a service request.
Oh, okay. Just ask the question. Yeah.
Yeah, and then basically say request a service, and just go other if it's not in there as an upgrade.
And they have to fit something in the car.
Yes, they fit something in the car. Doesn't take very long. It's just a day. I mean, you could probably wait while they do it, depending on when they can slot it in.
Yeah.
But they have to fit an interface module. Sort of, they splice it in between the charge port and the normal controller, and it basically adds the functionality of being able to handle CCS format, because the supercharger format is proprietary to Tesla. It uses a different method to CCS. And like I said, you'll get a physical adapter, and then you'll be set.
Yeah. Okay. I'll try that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, oh, and by the way, it'll be useful if you got yourself a UMC, which you can get off Tesla at the shop, or actually through your app. You can also buy it as an accessory.
What's the
And
UMC?
Universal Mobile Connector. So that's
Okay.
the portable charger that you can just plug into a 10 amp
Oh,
outlet.
that's what I've got one of those. Yeah.
Oh, you got one. Oh,
Yeah, I
okay,
got
cool.
one. That's how I've solved the problem. I just
Oh,
went to
sorry.
a
Okay.
mate's
No
house
worries.
and plugged it in. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant your mate had brought you a cable, but no,
No,
that's
no,
cool.
no. I've got one of those. Yeah, I carry that everywhere. So,
Yes. Yeah. Of course, the other thing you could have done too is gone around the corner in Kings Park near Zamia Cafe and plugged into the Type 2 outlet.
oh, is the one at Zamia?
Yes, there's actually DC as well, but obviously that wasn't going to be useful to you. But there is a Type 2 outlet as well at the
Oh, that's
Zamia.
strange actually, because Tesla didn't know that.
No, so Tesla only knows where its charger ecosystem is,
Oh, okay.
where they are, locations are. If you want to look at other sites, you've got to use PlugShare, which I'm guessing you're not familiar with.
No, no, no.
Right. Okay. Cool. That's why this is called Ask Us Anything. Okay. So PlugShare, it's a website, plugshare.com. It's also an app. And so, for example, if we sort of zoom around the southwest, you can see that Perth is absolutely inundated with fast DC chargers.
Okay.
And that's if we just use the CCS as the filter item. But if you include Type 2, then you'll see there are a lot of locations that have Type 2 charging.
So
Some
you
are,
could, okay. So
Yep.
you can switch off the CCS2 one and just have the.
you can
Type 2.
switch off CCS2 and just have Type 2.
Oh,
You'll
okay.
see the brown icons are restricted, so that's not really intended for public use.
Okay.
Or sometimes it's in things like residential apartment blocks, whereby it's used for residents, or other times it's referring to customer use only. Some of them are car
Okay.
dealers, where it might be restricted to.
So the Zamia one is the grey one in Kings Park.
So no, so yes, it is. Sorry, apologies. And in
Yeah.
fact, I think it's actually not working.
Okay. Yeah, they did actually. They said that when I called them.
She
They
says
said,
one in use, but I'm not entirely certain if because no one really uses the Type 2. AC backup. Oh, no, I did. On the 8th of March, I found it perpetually booting up. So I don't know whether it's still doing that. It certainly wasn't working on the 8th of March. But definitely please do download the PlugShare app,
sure. Okay.
and you'll see that it's got this sort of plug type extension cord socket appearance, and on your app store. And obviously configure the filters for what you can use. But yeah, you should absolutely get the CCS upgrade for your Model S for sure. That's really a must-have these days. That way you can literally drive your car from, well, here to Kununurra or here to Eucla and anywhere in between.
Mhm.
Using fast AC charging.
Yep.
And obviously, if you've got, you should get a Type 2 cable, Type 2 Type 2, if you haven't already got one, so that then you can use a lot of the Type 2 outlets that are untethered, which is many of the non-Tesla destination chargers.
Okay. Thanks.
No worries. Alrighty. Anyone got any questions or comments?
I'll go with a tech question.
Yes, George. And Huffies, I'll go to you straight after.
Oh, sorry, Hafiz. I just jumped in and didn't even raise my hand. The question is, when with the app, when you get your Tesla and you load the app, and you go on with Android on Google and you find a place on the maps, you can, Tesla just popped onto the phone and you could share it straight with your car. And then when you jump in your car, it's there on your navigation. When you add a second Tesla to the family, how do you select which Tesla you're sharing it with? Can you? Because at the moment it's still
Yes.
just shared.
No. So what you do is if you've got a few cars, you just select the one that's yours,
Yeah.
and then do it. If you inadvertently
okay,
select
get
your
you.
wife's car
Yep.
and you have a destination, you might send it to their car instead.
Yep. Okay. So
so
just in
you've got to
the app, have the app open in the selected car and then
Yes.
share. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. That helps.
And unless Tesla's broken
Easy.
something in the meantime, it should work. Certainly has worked in the past.
Okay. Right. Sorry, that was a quick one for you to solve.
Yeah, no, totally understandable. So that's the only way that the app really knows who you're referring to or which car you're referring to.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
No worries. Alrighty. Oh, Huffies. Yes, sorry, you had your hand up.
A comment that someone's posted on Twitter that they realized that the new update, whatever point the 2025, which some of the Model 3s have received, they've got a huge data burden, and they think that they've installed Shadow FSD, which is
Yes.
what happened in the US just before.
So Huffies, unfortunately, you didn't join us at the start of the program.
Oh, sorry. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's what we just mentioned a few minutes ago. So no, it's totally cool.
Sorry.
And we even got Damo, who is coming to us live from Kwinana, to confirm that his car actually has the larger payload, and even Paul Viana in a Hardware 3 car
Oh, no.
has got a fairly large payload. Not as big as
Nice.
Damo's, but we're not going to criticize him for that. But yeah, between 2.6 and 2.1 gigabytes, which is pretty interesting. Absolutely
Massive. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, totally cool. Totally cool. Alrighty. Got any other questions or comments?
So do you think they're actually testing Harold if they've got the larger memory? Do you think, like, in the background they're actually doing something with our car?
It's highly plausible. What Tesla has always done is have various functions in shadow mode. And what shadow mode basically does is you've got autopilot sort of running in the main mode, and then in the background you've got other processes running, which sort of, and they even also run if you're doing manual driving. So if you're manually driving, the car will effectively make decisions on what it would want to do, and it compares it with what you do. And obviously, I presume that what the car would generally do is report exceptions. So if it zigs and you zag, then it will go, oh, the owner has done something different to me, and that might be flagged as a potential error on behalf of the car. Not that the car physically does anything, it's just effectively judging the effectiveness of what it would have done to what you do. So it's been doing that for many, many years in various modes. And some of the things that Tesla has done is it will ask the fleet for certain outlying things, such as obscured stop signs. There's all sorts of different weird and wonderful things that Tesla often asks the fleet to send back examples of, which might be useful for their training data. So yeah, it's absolutely very plausible that Tesla is running FSD supervised or parts of it in the background in shadow mode. And clearly the implication is they are probably well, obviously preparing to launch it in Australia sometime this year. And like I said, one thing we just don't know is this something that occurs months in advance or weeks in advance or whatever, or something else that's more interesting? We just don't know. So for example, there are some things we know that Tesla does. Quite a few people got who have ordered the refreshed Model Y about 2 weeks ago, got a request from Tesla to enter in registration information. And a few people got quite excited thinking they were going to get the cars really soon. That's something that Tesla typically does about 6 weeks before delivery, roughly. So obviously that's nothing new, because 6 weeks from delivery is basically May, from when that occurred is basically May, which is what Tesla said in the first place. And on that note, obviously in the news it was mentioned that the launch version of the Model Y, which actually in this case was only the long range, because the standard range launch version was taken off their website a couple of weeks ago. But the launch version is now gone, and it's now back to the standard version Model Y. Notably, the pricing hasn't really adjusted down when you take into consideration if people have paint color changes and adjusting for the alloy wheels. So the Model Y price is fairly stable. But nonetheless, it's changed over. Those deliveries will occur from June, which is really interesting too. So it's sort of compressing the timelines. It looks like Shanghai is obviously spooled up, and they're just going to do a big Australian batch and send a lot of cars in the coming weeks, which will be awesome. Mike, you've got your hand up.
Hi guys. You might remember a few weeks ago we've been talking about my rascally speed monitoring background software, whatever it is. So I hope this, I missed the first 10 minutes of the show, and I'll catch up what you said at the start tomorrow when you post it. So if you repeat it again now. But I mean, I was going across the Narrows yesterday and it was 40 kilometers an hour, it was telling me, which is obviously roadworks underneath or something. But you'd think by now that the system knows which direction a car is going. So if there's a road with a different speed limit at right angles to it, it should ignore it.
Yeah, unless it could
think
see,
by now.
unless it saw the. You said Narrows. I've been over the
Yeah,
Narrows.
across the Narrows Bridge on the freeway.
Yeah, I've seen. I've been over the Narrows. Well, I do it daily, and I've
Yes.
not had that. I just wonder whether it might have seen a sign of some sort, or whether there are roadwork signs off to the side that it could optically see. Because one thing that overrides what the car does speed-wise is if it optically sees what it interprets as a speed limit sign.
Yeah, this was literally from the incline, up, and then the decline down, and it was literally right. So I thought, oh, it must be the road underneath's got roadworks.
Yeah, it looked at it.
It's all
It
over the
wouldn't have-
show as well.
It wouldn't have
You know,
picked
so-
it up on a database, so because the database
who
is
knows?
fixed. But yeah, obviously these things happen from time to time, and obviously
Yeah,
in
no, it's all good.
locations as you've discovered. So
Yeah.
I mean,
No, it's just
have you-
interesting. It's probably there all the time. It's just that Snav dinged on the speed limit warning beeper and noticing it all the time in all sorts of random places.
Yeah, that's why I turned mine off, because it's just annoying. But
Yeah,
obviously
no,
it's even more annoying if you inadvertently do speed and you get busted for it. These cars are so silent; it is easy to
I know.
exceed the speed limit without knowing.
And that's precisely why I put it back on. I've always been cautious about my, 40, how old am I? Whatever, 40 odd years of driving. I've had 2 tickets and they were both my stupid fault for deliberately speeding somewhere, but that's another story. So I watch my speed limit, and I like this is the whole reason I like the Tesla. They've got all this fruit in it and that's just one small little thing, but I just want it to work properly. This is, as I say, it's obvious stuff, and it happens. Like, you know, Canning Highway, going under that, it'll say it's 60 for a patch, and you guys know. And as I say, so I'm just interested. I'll look what my software size is for my 2022 version tomorrow when I get the info off X from your post, and we'll see what the story is. Because my appointment with them is on the 7th, so I'll be interested to see what they say.
Yep. Well, I mean, Paul Viona nailed it when his car is definitely hardware 3.
Yes, so is mine.
And that's the same as mine, and mine has the small size, and yet Paul's got the big size. So there are changes afoot, which is very interesting.
Yes. So I just thought I'd weigh into that, saying it'd be good. But apart from the fact that I hate the fact that they don't sell the Model S here, because I would have chosen the Model S, because that's the shape of that car and its design compared with the 3, I think, is better. But they don't sell it here. Whoops, what am I doing? Trying to get rid of my lower hand.
No, they don't, unfortunately.
Yes.
And that was basically due to Tesla's lack of foresight when they designed the refreshed Model S and X, and they just did not think of the steering column and what influence it would have on the motor mount, which basically got bound up, and it was just going to cost too much money to change it. So all the right-hand drive markets missed out, which is a shame. But as was said, and we don't really know why, but Japan and the UK were actually selling left-hand drive Model S's and X's, which I personally think is irresponsible. But anyway,
yes,
I don't know. And they quite proudly would sell a Tesla badged rubbish pickup hook thing. What do you call it? It's like this grab thing. It's a handle that you squeeze it, and it has 2 little pincers in it. You can grab something. You normally do it for picking up rubbish on the side of the road. And they did that so you can do things like pull out parking tickets from parking machines and stuff like that, because you're on the wrong side of the road going through a multi-story car park, which is just nuts. And interestingly, Tesla Japan said that they had, I think they've deleted the tweet since actually, they posted that they have stopped production of, or they call it production, but it's probably sales. They stopped sales of the Model S into Japan, and the speculation on the back of Ryan McCaffrey's interview with Lars Moravy, or was it maybe Jay Leno's with Lars and Franz, basically saying that the Model S and X are going to get a little bit of refreshing love later this year. So there's speculation that if there's that kind of refreshment, it could be the 48 volt low voltage system voltage, and if that's the case, they could go to steer by wire. And if you do steer by wire, then it doesn't matter which side of the car the steering wheel is; it won't bind up with the motor mount, and therefore they could bring out right-hand drive S's and by extension S's. So maybe that might happen at the end of the year. Who knows? Yeah, I guess we'll find out. Ryan, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just in terms of things like the phantom braking that we're just talking about, or where you've got consistent problems with a speed sign or something like that, what's the preferred way to give that feedback to Tesla? And is it worth it?
2 very good questions. I'm sure Tesla's preferred way is that we didn't bother. Look, you could try and raise it as a service ticket, but to be honest, I don't think it's going to go very far. But if you have detailed locations and data, then that can be useful. Look, even if you've got a passenger with you that can take a photo of the indicated speed limit in an area that's clearly at a higher speed, you could raise it as a ticket. I mean, the thing is, Mike is raising it with Tesla because I think it was a week or two ago, I actually went on the same route that he suggested and, documented it in video showing exactly what it does. And it's purely because of a faulty database entry.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, or a couple of weeks ago, I'm pretty sure that the database they use is OpenStreet. The navigation software is TomTom. The visualization for the mapping is Google, and I think the speed limit and other things in the mapping is done through OpenStreetMap, which has speed limits and that sort of stuff. You could try it and just see what service says.
Yeah,
But
and it sounds like a lot of effort to bother.
no, well,
Yeah,
definitely. It's always worth bothering because, each little time that something like this gets presented to Tesla, it just reminds them that it's the little things that are important, obviously. And actually, I heard a really good thing. I forget who it was that coined it and said that sales is what gets your first car sold, but service, I think it was Lars actually, but service is what sells your second and third car because it's the service experience that basically cements the people's ongoing purchasing of that brand. So really, it is important that if there are little niggles or something, that Tesla listens and hopefully it will cause something positive to be done about it.
just in regards to the phantom braking while I'm on that topic, does anyone else have problems with motorcycles coming at them causing phantom braking?
Yes, I mean I've got problems with motorcycles on the Kwinana Freeway, basically just illegally lane splitting at 80 k's an hour or 70 k's an hour or 60, because by the way, I don't think they're allowed to lane split any faster than 30 k's an hour, and then they'll sort of effectively dart into your lane, and then the car will rightly treat it as a threat and then brake fairly hard, make way for them.
I'm more seeing like oncoming motorbikes. A motorbike will come around a corner and the car will emergency brake.
No, I've not seen that. Is that on a single lane each way road, or is that a dual carriage?
Yep.
Yeah, right.
And it's happened enough for it to be a theme now.
Which road? Which road, Ryan?
For me, it's Jarradale Road, which is quite a windy road and not suitable to, technically not suitable for auto steer. But this is just even cruise control, not with auto steer on. And a bike will come around a corner and it will, and it's quite violent. Like it's quite a sharp. It's not like it's just disengaging cruise control. It's an emergency brake.
Was the bike going? I know this is a rhetorical question. Was the bike speeding in the other direction, like coming quite quickly?
Not just standard. There's no. Sometimes the couple of times I've seen there's been two bikes. Has been a couple of times. But it's got to a point where if I see a bike coming, I'll hover over the pedal because I need to override it.
Yep.
But But no, I just thought if it was a common thing, I'd accept it. If it's unusual, I'll investigate a bit further.
Not saying it with bike, but we all get phantom braking. A lot of it too can be autopilot. I think's been programmed a little bit more trigger happy, especially when there's a potential cross traffic.
Yeah.
If someone at an intersection and you're on the through road, and they're like in the middle of the island or something, and they're a little bit sort of forward, the car will incorrectly think of that vehicle as a threat and then obviously brake. And you've just got to, like you said, Ryan, you just get used to hovering your foot over and pushing through it with your accelerator, which works very effectively. It does stop that braking action. But
it's worthwhile mentioning that Tesla mentions that it's in beta mode still, and the Australian version is not designed for any roads with cross traffic, with parked cars. It's really only designed for major roads, freeways. always
If I'm
really won't like it.
correct, that's just the auto steer though. The actual cruise control, I don't believe, is in beta. Is that correct?
Correct. It's the auto
Yeah.
steer. Yep.
Yeah,
And
because
unfortunately,
I'm just talking about cruise control. The auto steer,
yeah.
yeah, it's beta. Like, it's only really meant for highway, and I'm pushing it if I'm using it anywhere else. But the cruise control is kind of an important feature for drivability.
And one slight shortcoming of cruise control is it's not radar based,
Yeah,
which many other cars do have radar based cruise control. It's really optically based, and it does rely on having a good view of the road, even though it's really the cars that it's really concentrating on for that sort of task. But it can suffer from the same foibles as, say, autopilot when it comes to interpreting what to do with potential threats,
Yeah.
because it's basically got its foot on the accelerator so effectively, virtually. So you really get many of the autopilot shortcomings, if we call them those, happening on TAC as well, because Tesla doesn't use radar anymore, except for some of the old legacy cars. And even now, I'm not even sure if they've still got them on. They might for the old S's and X's, but for all the other cars, 3s and Ys, it's all just vision, basically.
and I found a situation with Kangaroo sitting on the road, not moving, and the car would have gone straight through it because it couldn't see it because it was camouflaged against the background.
Yes.
So yeah, it was. It's not going to save you for a Kangaroo. They don't pick them up at all.
No, and I hit a cow on autopilot, although it was in adverse conditions with
How on autopilot?
it was on autopilot, but I did have a Subaru Outback with an LED light bar, basically blind with high beam on, blinding the situation. I was on low beams, and these cows were chocolate brown color, and yeah, it's on my X post. Yeah, the car survived. Well, the cow and the car survived, but that was basically the cause of my tire blowout. I don't know, 9,000 k's later on a figure eight, because it had put the alignment of the back out because the cow had swung around and its rear end had tapped the back door. But anyway, so yeah, it's not perfect, but it's obviously getting a lot better with FSD supervised, as we can see. And in fact, I've got a video that goes for about 5 minutes, which will be a good interlude. It's a Chinese video, and it just shows how remarkable FSD supervised is. Mike, you've got your hand
sorry,
up.
I didn't want to interrupt. I'll just concur with you there, Harold and Ryan, because I find that even without the tack on, it's if you get most of you appreciate Carron Road's dual carriageway, and there are lots of cross streets, so cars that are crossing from one side to the other into the central reservation or not. It really is trigger happy in terms of the distance away. And this is not with tack on. I've just got emergency braking on. It will hit the brakes, I don't know, at least twice the distance that you or I would. And it scares the crap out of any passengers because they wonder what's going on. You can see a car, I don't know how far away it is. It's probably not 100 meters, but I bet it's 50. And it's obvious that the car isn't going to pull up right in front of you. Us as humans, we can see that immediately because the speed the car is going from left to right. And I would have thought the software should have been able to pick that up by now. You know, when a car's going that fast sideways, it should know that. And it doesn't. As you say, it's trigger happy and it just hits the brakes, and that's without cruise control on. So I'd find it very nerve-wracking going off Carron Road these days in case there's a car going to come across.
The thing is, we're currently in this stage of, we're in this zombie zone of
Yes.
Of having autopilot that really has not had any development, any meaningful development for a long time.
Yes.
And obviously having FSD, which, you know, is absolutely amazing. And like I said, I'll reserve the video if we run out of questions, or I mean, I will play it in any case. but might do it towards the end of the program. And it's only just one of, no doubt, hundreds of clips. And the complexity of this driving situation is just mind-blowing. And it's something that would probably give us cold sweats having to navigate it. And the car just does it with absolute ease. But yeah, we'll cross that when we get to that. But alrighty, I think Damo, you must be about 6 cars or so, maybe 7 cars away from a run. So that'll be cool. We can have a live run via Damo.
Yeah, it's bloody a lot of hold-ups tonight, Harold, so I'm trying to get there.
Yeah, right. Breakdowns, people stalling on the line. I don't know, whatever. Who knows?
There's a lot of bikes. They take up a lot of time. And also someone went in the sandbank before, and yeah,
Oh,
a bit of drama
right.
going on.
Yeah, right. Dare say they should have brought their Tesla with them, but they'll learn one
Yeah,
day, Damo. Rather than there
some
being 1 or 2 Teslas at the drags, there will be all Teslas and 1 or 2 ICE cars.
that's what I aim to do, fill this whole car park up with Teslas.
Very good. Very good.
Does the
Uh,
warmer temperature make the car go better?
Yep, they love it.
Cool.
Everybody else is here. They've got pulling bags of ice and on their engines and stuff, trying to keep them cool. We just go round and around all night. So they love it. They
yeah.
love the heat. The hotter, the better.
Very good. All right. Well, we'll look forward to that. Oh, I see a bit of smoke in the on your image there, Damo. So there's a bit of tyre. You'd think that these things are sponsored by the tyre manufacturers, eh?
Yeah, so they are.
Big payday for the tyre makers. Excuse me. Alrighty. Anyone got any questions or comments? No. All right. Well. Oh yes, Trev. You got-
I'll jump in, Harold, if no one's talking.
Oh yes, go.
I'll just preface by saying I'm between jobs on night shift, so I might, if I miss the answer, I'll end up checking it on YouTube tomorrow. But just a question. I've been asked multitude of questions that sort of stem back to one point. So it's a bit of a long-term type electrical issue, I suppose, is with the uptake of EVs, if they become more popular and say there's twice as many Teslas or just EVs in general on the road, people have asked me about what issues we're going to run into with the grid and charging. So I suppose long term, you would say that hopefully a lot of the cars are actually back to vehicle to grid or whatever, and will be, if there's a high demand, the cars will actually be helping each other. But if you were to say that there was 30% or 20% more, could you actually see issues with like neighborhoods dropping out if too many cars were all charging at the same time due to like low electricity prices? Everyone all of a sudden at 9 p.m. everyone starts plugging their car in. And do you actually see any issues with the grid during that transition period, or do you think the uptake of cars would be slow enough that they would keep counteracting those grid issues as the uptake comes up?
Yeah, so one of the important things you said was price. So of course there will be a price incentive to not charge during peak times. Absolutely. And it is absolutely true that if all EVs plugged in at, say, 6 p.m., it would be disastrous for the grid, because that would be a huge point load, or like an impulse occurring within, say, a half-hour period. It would vastly exacerbate the duck curve, because an average EV can draw between 7 and 11 kilowatts, just one EV. So if you imagine that all cars are EVs, then there's, I don't know, 750,000 cars drawing between 7 and 11 kilowatts in a half-hour period. So, worst case. Now, that will never happen because, well, in fact, let's just say, rumor has it that EPWA is working on doing to EV chargers what has been done in an opposite sense to solar inverters, and that is, it's highly likely that there will eventually be a mandated control, centralized control, in the worst case, or in extreme cases, of EVSEs, of car chargers that are installed, probably at home as well, or in particular at home, so that it does things like it will not, unless you sort of have an exceptional circumstance, it won't just allow all EVs to start charging at 6 p.m. when people get home. Now, when you say what effect it has on the grid, it has a dual effect. It can fill the grid and save it in the same breath. So, for example, if you have, most cars live in workplace car parks, basically, because most car owners work, and most of the time they drive their cars to work. So, and to a lesser extent, there are cars at home and at things like shopping centres and other large places. So what you really want them to do is soak up the daytime peak production of solar. So if you can get them to charge during the daytime, they will actually greatly assist the grid, because it means you can have many more solar panels doing what they should be doing, which is providing power on the shoulder times in the early morning and the late afternoon, where they really needed the most. But during the daytime sort of super peak of production, you want EVs and other batteries to suck that up and absorb it. And then that means if you're charging at work or during the daytime, you will not be charging at the peak shoulder rate at 6 p.m. or whatever at all. So the actual, even though 7 to 11 kilowatts is a lot of power, it's not actually a lot of energy that's required, because the average car does about 38 kilometers of range per day. And if the average car has an efficiency of 150 watt hours, you're only basically absorbing 5.7 kilowatt hours per day, which is not very much. That's less than a house. But it's all about the timing. Now, you did also mention vehicle to grid, and that is every energy regulator's wet dream, is to have all of these EVs basically contributing to the grid at night time. And that's something that will happen. We already know that Teslas can do it notionally. They just act like a battery on wheels. You interface that to an inverter at your house, and the magic just happens basically automatically. So yeah, there's absolutely opportunities and threats, and EVs represent both of those in equal measure. But obviously governments and regulators will do things like they'll regulate if they're concerned that if there's an excess of EV chargers that are being installed domestically, they will simply do what they've done with solar and regulate it. So it will be illegal to install a high power EV charger to a house without it being a compliant EVSE. And compliant will probably imply that there'll be some means of remotely controlling the power output of that EVSE if the need
Harold,
arises.
I'm about to run. Sorry to butt
No
in.
worries, Damo. I'm going to put you on Spotlight. There you go.
So there we go.
All right, don't
So
bin it into the sand.
Something pretty special happened tonight. Julie and Matt came, and she went 1094 in her Model 3.
Ooh, very good.
So
Well, just suck
yeah,
that belly in. Suck that belly in, Damo.
absolutely fine.
All right.
Track's nice tonight. That was a good launch.
How'd you go?
I think maybe 11.2, Pete.
Nice.
Which is very consistent with last time.
I went 11.16 earlier.
Oh, very good. Very good. Well, it's probably going to cost you an arm and a leg, Damo, if you just cut both
Hey,
one of the.
Harold, getting back to the previous conversation, in terms of regulating EVSEs, wouldn't a much better approach or a solution be to have dynamic pricing that's linked to the spot market that can adjust based on demand and supply? All you need to do is link it to the balancing market, which adjusts every half an hour, and the retailer can put their fixed margin on top. I mean, it's done in the eastern states, works perfectly fine there. It's done in many other markets around the world. It's done in WA if you're a contestable customer. So if you've got loads higher than about 50 megawatt hours a year, 50,000 kilowatt hours a year, which is mainly businesses, etc. But it's really not economic at that level. But if you're a large contestable customer, you can, especially if you're using, $500,000 or a megawatt of power a year, and you're on a demand-based rather than a consumption-based tariff, it makes sense.
Yeah, but Pete, you mentioned demand-based. Demand-based wouldn't work with a house because you're only still representing 11 kilowatts, say, of demand, and a house is entitled to pull 22.
That was just an example of.
That's cool. So that's cool. So then if you go to, let's just make cars. What'd you get, Damo?
Let's have a look. 11.18.
Oh, very good. Job. Okay, so very good. If you go to like just a variable price, Pete, I guess the question there is they have to have a contingency where householders quite rightly say, well, I don't want to have variable pricing because it doesn't suit my charging, my consumption behaviour, and I don't want to be ripped off at 7 p.m. and have to pay $1 a kilowatt hour. So the problem is the government would have to do both.
That's what I'm saying.
They would offer a stick, so they'd have to say, the carrot is if you stick that EVSE or your house on a strict volatile pricing model, then the presumption is that most people are rational and they would alter their behaviour or be able to alter their behaviour on the presumption that if the price is expensive, it means please don't use it.
No, Harold, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying replacing the current A1 tariff. I'm saying provide a variable price tariff as an option. So it's not you have to. You can, but you don't have.
That's right. So as an option, if you tick that box, they'll say maybe you can just install whatever you like. But I just don't see it happening. I see the safest solution is mandate the installation of compliant internet-connected devices that can be load shed when necessary, just like every single solar inverter that has been legally connected to the grid since 20-something.
There's a big difference, Harold.
There's no difference, Pete. It's exactly the same.
No, there's a huge difference. So the difference is if your solar inverter gets shut down by Western Power, that's fine. You miss out on having solar generated power. You're still pulling as much as you need from the grid. If you need to charge your car because there's an emergency or what have you, and now your charger is shut down, that affects your lifestyle. That could be an emergency situation, what have you. So that's the difference.
So firstly, what you can do is have a demand response trigger. It doesn't have to be a full shutdown. It can be you halve the power output over a 5-minute period. In fact, there is a standard for EVSEs in Australia. Unfortunately, it's a draft standard that the federal government or whoever it was that had finished drafting it never bothered to complete it. So there were different levels of demand response. I think there was a 25% reduction, 50% reduction, 75% reduction, and disconnection. And they were escalating levels. And the user always had the right or the ability to press an override button that said, no, in my case, I need full service. And then that could be overridden.
As long as you've got that and it works,
Yes.
and people are
And
educated.
that could be overridden once. So you override it once, and then if your EVSE got a second demand response escalation, it would lock that out. And that was a draft standard that was formulated several years ago, but never completed. So there's
It just puts it at a massive disadvantage. It'd be like being at a petrol station and all of a sudden the flow rate of your Bowser is halved. I mean,
yes,
people would be
but
outraged.
it is, yeah, but it is different because governments have to impose laws to maintain order, and the opposite of order is disorder. And if you had a disorderly consumption of electricity, well over what the grid has ever been designed for and can be augmented to, depending, then they have to do something. So you could not have up until a few years ago, there was a disorderly production of solar, whereby the gross demand in WA could go negative. And the thing is, if you've got nowhere to put it, you're going to start blowing stuff up, and they're going to have to start shedding load, not load, but shedding generation. And that's like shedding whole suburbs to stop the overproduction of power, because it always has to be instantaneously matched. So when you've got some new product or some new thing, obviously governments have to come in for the good of everyone to regulate them. You know, I guess it's the reason why you have speed limits for vehicles, because just because a car can do 200 doesn't mean it should. So that's the point. So clearly,
but it's an issue of demand and supply, isn't it? And it's a scarce asset. So electricity is a scarce commodity, and the best or the least worst method that human beings know of efficiently allocating scarce resources is through an open market. So why wouldn't that be the thing that we turn to first and foremost? And then if that proves that it's breaking down or it's not able to do its job, then you put in guidelines, then you put in the guardrails. But why wouldn't you go to the free market first?
If you look at Australia's electricity prices on the Eastern Seaboard, compare it to WA. In WA, we have a fixed government market. What do you call it? Socialised market or central market. And over East, they have free for all. And you compare our A1 tariff to a tariff over East and ask those people if they think they're better off than we are. I mean, it's an argument that can be made. Who wants to go, Paul or Saxon?
Yeah.
Go Paul.
I was just going to add on that, you know, like with our new state government, and they've got the new battery rebates coming in, because that one of the provisos on that is that it's got to be a virtual power plant, you know, like enabled sort of stuff. So this might be something what they're actually thinking of as well to help stabilize it. And with all our coal plants and stuff being literally replaced by big batteries, I don't think this is going to be an issue at all. It'll just be, we'll have island issues, you know, like, but the grid itself will be fine. And vehicle to grid is signed off in Australia. So it's a nothing burger really with this sort of stuff. Unfortunately with our state government, it'll be whatever they tell us will be. And hopefully we'll have something behind the media that we can sort ourselves out.
And there's been no commitment by the state government to stop Synergy from having the retail monopoly as being the monopoly provider. Retailer for domestic users.
Yep. It'll be the business as usual for the next 4 years, but we'll be mostly fully renewables by then, which is good.
Or else, we have to be.
We have to be. He-Face doesn't have much longer to go. So.
Jackson, you were next.
Saxon
then
next. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just going to say a couple of things. I'll just put my video on. Just a couple of things around energy. I kind of agree with the fact that you should be charged what the electricity costs. I went to an interesting presentation once where Western Power were there, and they said that to produce the top kilowatt of energy, it costs about $10,000 per kilowatt hour, or it was even higher than that, just because of all the infrastructure that's required to deliver that last kilowatt on the top of the stack. So it does cost a lot of money to produce power in peak, and so it's kind of fair to charge people more money to use power when the demand is high. But also, there was we have had fuel rationing in this state, in this country, previously when fuel was scarce. So it's also fair to cut down the amount. I mean, it seems fair to cut it down so that everyone's got it, rather than let it get to a point where no one's got it at all as well. So that's just some thoughts.
Our state will be fine.
I'll get to you, Huffies, in 2 seconds, and James.
Yeah.
I mean, something the state government could do, which is a win-win, is to say, if you're on the L1 tariff, which is guaranteed 30 cents 24/7, they could introduce a carrot that says, however, between 10 and 2 or 9 and 3, we will actually give you a discount. So you could then alter your, if you wanted, to take advantage of that by altering your behavior and shifting, say, an EV's consumption during the daytime. Then that will naturally prevent it from becoming a problem, even if you're on a fixed no loss tariff in the evening. So the governments could absolutely see, because let's face it, the value of solar in the daytime is probably approaching zero to negative, almost. So the government could absolutely, without costing anyone who wants to stay on their guaranteed steady tariff, they may just say, look, but we're going to give you a discount during these hours, and if you are a rational human being with the ability to do so, you could then take up that advantage and let that kind of, it's not an active minute by minute market, but a price incentive be the carrot that entices you to take advantage of it.
Retailers have already been doing this, Harold, for the last 10 years.
Not in Western Australia, Pete. So until, like Paul says, until the Minister for Energy, Amber Jade Sanderson, I don't know, wakes up and smells the roses and says, why is it that our monopoly retailer has a monopoly in that domestic market, it's not going to happen. It just doesn't matter. It's not going to happen, and it hasn't happened for the last decade.
No, but in terms of the incentives, the carrot and the stick, I mean, residential tariffs, we've had different EPWA every year or two propose, and they do a trial run, and then it turns into a tariff or it doesn't. They've been doing that for 10 years. I'm still on a legacy tariff from 12 years ago, where I pay, like a quarter of the usual rate after 9 and before 7, but between 7 and 11, I pay a shoulder tariff. Between 11 and 5, I pay a peak tariff, but then it changes between summer and winter. And that's a great tariff to be on now, but no one else can go on it, because once enough people go on it, then they have to invent another one, and then they have to invent another one. They've got to keep on doing this. The problem is they're always behind the curve, and they're always chasing their tails. Why don't you just do it in real time and let the market decide for you and give you the signals that you need, and you only intervene when the market fails, when you have to put in guardrails. But just to your last point that you made just before Damo did his run, so comparing us to the eastern states, we actually pay the same amount as the eastern states, even though they've got a deregulated market. The only difference is that our residential tariffs are highly subsidised from the general tax pool. So the real cost of providing power to houses is not the 31 cents, it's closer to about 38, 40 cents, which is what they pay over east. So our prices aren't any different in the east, just WA. Every government comes in and it's unpopular to increase it's unpopular for a government to increase power prices. So they subsidise it each time from the general tax pool. So we're still paying for it. It's just that we're paying for it in a roundabout way. but we're still paying the same as over east. So our market in that sense is no superior to the market.
Alrighty. I thought it was Huffy's. No? Oh, maybe it was okay. James, you just got your hand up. Yeah, go.
No, it's a good discussion to have. But what is it? There's about 20 million cars in Australia, and we buy just over 1 million new cars a year. So it is even if everybody bought an EV as their next car, it's basically a 10-year plan before.
Yep.
And I just put a link in the chat about the 4 new big batteries being built in WA.
Yeah.
If you remember 2 years ago, they were figuring out how to turn off our solar because our rooftop solar was producing too much. And in 2 years' time, it only takes a 4-hour battery to lift that from peak time during the day when no one's using it to the evening.
Yeah.
So
and those are extra on top of the Collie batteries.
Yeah, exactly right.
More,
so as much as we say we should incentivize, hey, yes, charge your car at night, it is cheaper. People are people. People will get home and charge at the wrong time. So
if everyone wants to charge at 6 p.m. In an open market, the price per kilowatt hour would be like $1, $2, $3, $4, $5. Whereas at 12 o'clock in midday, it might be 5 cents. So people will work. The thing with EV charging is they're a highly discretionary, highly price sensitive load. So people, price signals are very effective for people that own EVs and want to charge their cars. If you can charge your car at 6 p.m. and pay $1 per kilowatt hour, or at 12 p.m. and pay 5 cents, you'll work out how to do the latter very quickly.
Yeah, but as an argument, it's important to say this is something that is being sold as we talk, and it's not going to happen tomorrow that we're going to have selling too many EVs for the system today, and tomorrow's going to be better. And as much as what you're saying, Pete, is 100% right the way we should go, we know that the first time it happens, some pensioner or some fixed income person is going to be on a current affair saying, oh, my power bill, I don't know why I'm getting $2,000. I'm just so hot and I'm going to turn my aircon on, cooking dinner and charging my EV during the day. And that's all it takes, one bad story.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just get Damo's run.
Yep.
Go.
Oh.
A little bit slow response time that time.
Wheels spun a little bit again on that one.
Okay. Did you beat him still?
Yeah, he's gone.
That's all that matters.
You got too many pies in there, Damo. That's the problem. Too many pies.
Yes, he needs to cut an arm and a leg off. But
add more lightness.
But yeah, you're right, James. And the thing too is that highlights the extremities of the case. You must have a fixed 24/7 tariff for people that can't afford to change their behaviour, and they need power at a reasonable price, whenever that is. It doesn't matter when that is. And that's appropriate to have that choice. At the other end of the spectrum, you can have someone who is a hyper user, whereby, and look, this is something that Tesla could offer easily too, is with a software update, Tesla could use the equivalent of AutoBidder for all of our cars, and we just plug a car into an EVSE, and Tesla just works on variable pricing if energy becomes deregulated. And it might be that you could actually sit there at midday and sip from solar when prices go negative, which they actually do when there's a surplus of generation, or when certain loads go offline. There's an emergency thing where you've got to dump, well, either abate production or just suck it up, and the price can go $10,000 a kilowatt hour negative easily. So
not that much.
Technology, well, maybe not that much, because there'd be limits. They'd have hard price limits, but you can have extremes. And since our cars are software-defined cars, they could
Thank you,
act.
sir. Yep.
What'd you get, Domo?
1117.
Hey,
Oh, very consistent.
good job.
Very consistent. Very good. Yeah, so all of this can be fixed with technology, but nonetheless, my prediction is AEMO or the government or whatever will treat the installation of EVSEs, domestic ones, the same as the installation of domestic solar inverters. For better or worse, I know they're different things. They're kind of at the opposite end of the problem or solution, and it will happen. And we can whinge about it, but bearing in mind, they'll never ever deregulate something like a 10 amp UMC. So you can obviously plug anything into a 10 amp outlet as you like, and not be told by anyone what to do with it and when. But yeah, mark my words, in the next few years, I have zero doubt that to officially install that, sorry, it's just like with solar, in the past you just had stuff, yet you applied for it basically after it was installed, and they then made it illegal to install it before you'd applied for it, because a lot of people would not bother with getting an electronic meter. They liked the spinny around meter because then you could unwind it in the daytime and wind it back up at night time, and that meant you had a perfect 1-for-1 tariff, and that wasn't great for Western for Synergy. So the government will probably require that if you install a high power charger in your house, that it will have to meet certain regulations, and it will have to be internet connected and be a compliant EVSE. And
Look, that's a perfect example where they could have done the same thing. So with the feed-in tariff or the buyback rate, or call it what you will, the remuneration that you get for selling your power back to the grid, if that was done on a variable market rate as well, rather than having everyone done excess solar during the middle of the day, you would get nothing for it. But if you
That was a big burnout.
if you dump that power back at 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock at night, you
Can't
would,
see anything.
you would get paid 50 cents or whatever the power is worth at that time. Then you wouldn't need to muck around with incentives for batteries, because that would be your incentive right there. People would have invested into batteries naturally because the market would have given them the price signal to do it.
yeah, but don't forget, Pete, as we described last week for Richard's Powerwall, the lifetime warranted in-out cost of a Powerwall at $15,000 for about, let's call it 14 kilowatt hours, over the 10-year warranty period is 29 cents per kilowatt hour stored and released. So that level of battery is just not economically viable yet at that price. So, and anyway, the government has to have a mechanism of stopping something from happening. If we own solar panels and we are told, oh well, you're going to get nothing for the power, that doesn't mean we're going to go out there and turn our inverters off, and the inverters aren't going to turn themselves off. So the problem is, if you have uncontrolled generation, you're going to blow up the grid. So you have to have a way of controlling it.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying we should have uncontrolled generation. What I'm saying is our first go-to should not be this draconian regulation. Our first go-to should be the open market, and then you put guardrails, then you regulate. If the market can't do its job, which is to allocate resources efficiently, if it breaks down, that's the time when government needs to step in with regulation and put in the limits, put in the guardrails.
Well, it has.
But not as a...
Yeah, but it has. It's basically said if all the old inverters are grandfathered, any new installation will allow you to do it, providing you provide a means by which that can be in an extreme circumstance. And I don't even know how many times it's actually happened, but it's only on a Sunday lunchtime near the spring or autumn equinox, whereby it's mild weather conditions. Many industries are shut down, small businesses are shut down, so they're not consuming air conditioning. Houses aren't consuming a lot, but it's a sunny day, mild sunny day, and you got the extreme of negative gross supply. But as has been said before, we've got 2 gigawatt hours of more batteries coming online. This might be a solved thing for the time being. And also the other way they could do it was, if you aren't solar now, you can have solar, set your inverter to zero net export, and there's nothing wrong with that, and preferably have it attached to batteries. And then most people can be fairly self-sufficient for 9 months of the year. Puffies and then Mike.
I just wanted to ask, Paul was mentioning, was there a battery rebate coming, and
Yep.
is it
Yep.
is it just for new installations from time forward, or
Yep. Yeah, 1st of July. We're trying to get it
right?
pushed for
Okay.
brought
So in the
back, but I
meantime,
think it's still going to be 1st of July, and there's going to be a 10 grand low income. We don't know the thresholds or any of that. So it'd be virtual power plants,
Okay.
all that sort of shit. That was from the state government, and that's been confirmed. So details coming.
and in the
Paul,
meantime, all the solar
Thank you.
inverter, all the solar installation companies are
I
going to go
know.
broke, and the
I know.
installers are being laid off, and will probably go up and work for the mines because everyone has cancelled their orders until July. Because
Yeah.
why wouldn't you if you can save 5 grand or 10 grand?
it will be brought forward. There's no way they'll be able to hold off.
Yeah, they have to.
Right. It will have to be brought forward, and it will be brought forward. There's no way it's going to be 1st of July. Trust me.
Yeah.
Well, it's been, 4 weeks since the announcement, or was it 3 weeks? And those companies are bleeding big time.
Yeah.
Because most of the time batteries are mated with solar, so you get a combined solar/battery install. And unless they can convince the customer to do a split install, then the problem is it depends on what the definition of the rebate is. Is it just on the battery component? Can it be separable? Could you just, if I've got the batteries, I might as well kind of install them but not connect them, so you can apply for the rebate later? But the rebate probably means nothing could have started until the rebate time has started. So you're right, Pete. I mean, I do hope they bring it forward, but in the meantime, all of those installation companies are bleeding themselves to death. And
not only that, the installers that have nothing to do right now are being laid off. So the companies that are able to, got enough cash reserves, or are able to ride this out, they're laying off installers. Some of those installers may not come back at the time when we'll need them the most, because that's when the avalanche is going to come, and they'll be most of those installers wouldn't have worked for the last 2 months. So it's a perfect example of how inefficient it is when a government tries to get into the market. It would have been much better just to have a variable market-based price for feed-in tariffs and let the market.
You can't put logic to it anyway.
No. But Peter, it would have been better if the idiot that came up with this idea asked anyone a question: what effect will this have on industry, and how do we stop that effect? And the easiest way to do that is you wait till a week before the election, which you knew you were going to win anyway. You wait for a week before the election. You say, if we are re-elected, on the day after we are re-elected, we are going to open this rebate scheme. And it will take time to put in the legislation, but it will be backdated to the day after the election, so that, rest assured, anyone that engages into a contract or whatever and it's compliant from the day after the election will get that rebate. And many governments do that. They do that when they announce something on the night of the budget, but it doesn't get legislated until months later, if not many months later. Everyone knows there's that certainty.
So Harold, I have it on very good authority that they knew exactly what would happen and that they were warned about this, and they did it anyway.
Yes.
So they can't claim that they didn't know, because I know that they did.
And I've heard that as well, Richard, and it's not the first time either. So if you remember back when we had the 40 cents on top of the 7.135 cents as the feed-in tariff that lasted, was the contractual terms was it was supposed to last 10 years. And I don't know if it was in Sydney or Melbourne, but one of the eastern states they had a similar regime, try to end it retrospectively early. And Solar Citizens staged a rally at Parliament House, and they had to change it the same day. And 2 weeks later, the WA government, knowing fully well what happened only 2 weeks earlier at the eastern states, tried to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, right. No, I didn't know that.
By the evening of the same day, there was a rally already organised for Parliament House for the next morning. So at 11 o'clock at night, they wound it back. So it didn't even last hours. So yeah, that's how our government's work, unfortunately.
And we think the governments are working for us.
Exactly. Mike, you've got your hand up patiently.
That's all right, guys. I'd let you have a chat. So here's a thought. As you know, I'm relatively new to the electrical vehicle world, and I'm listening to all these discussions. And just as an aside, my role when I was working was to help groups of people think out loud to improve what they're doing. You can word that however you like. Now, I'm in the other thing is I'm in a slightly, I'd probably say increasing group of people, in that being retired from full-time work now, I'm at home during the day, except when we go to the shops or something, or up the Bunnings or something. But I would ask the question, so if I had my old hat on, I'd ask the question like, how many of you have your vehicle plugged in at home or work, or could have it plugged in at home or work, and it's not actually charging? So I imagine there's a normal distribution there, probably over a large population. So there'll be a few who need it plugged in and need it charging all the time because they do tons of miles all the time. Then there'll be a few people like me who don't do many miles or kilometers. Sorry, being a pommy, I say miles, kilometers. And then there'll be people in the middle. It would be a fairly easy software adjustment instead of just this really basic date-based scheduler. And again, excuse my ignorance around scheduler, but let's say, for example, I'm just postulating here as a thought that you need to go to work every morning. So therefore, let's say by 6 a.m. every morning, your vehicle must have X amount in it. You know, if we've got the bigger batteries, the 80%, or the others, you'd probably charge it to 100. But you plug it in when you come home, the software should be able to calculate based on your supply. So even though you might have a 7 or 11 kilowatt charger or whatever, it might only need to do 5 kilowatts. So what it actually does is smooth out the demand, even though your vehicle's plugged in. And if you have that across a large spectrum, then it would know. Now, I'm sure, you know, there are obvious, again, having worked with people, there are always people who can come up with the edge cases. What if you have an emergency that comes up and all the rest of it? Yeah, sure. And, you know, you've got a piece of software saying, I need it charged now, please, because I'm going to be going out at 4 o'clock or something, right? So that would actually be an interim, relatively easy thing to do on Tesla's part, to actually put charge smoothing into the scheduler. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's something that's a bit more basic than that, which is done if you've got a power wall and a wall connector.
Ah, yes.
And that is the charge on solar. So you set two limits. So you set your charge as usual for daily driving, which means no matter what time of day it is, when you plug in, your car will get to 40%, even if that requires drawing from the grid. Then there is an other limit that you can set, which case, if there's no solar, you'll never get above 40%, and you can slide these around. And then if there is solar, it'll go up to 90%. This is the case if you've got a nickel chemistry battery pack, and if you've got a LFP, you can just go to 100%. So that's not even clever software. That's just a minor function. But that's what I was alluding to before. Fleet-wide, Tesla could easily implement software where you choose, if you choose to enroll your car in that program, and it would be in geographical areas so that it would make sense. absolutely, you could just plug the car in all day, and it wouldn't matter if it was your own house or somewhere else.
Doesn't
The
matter.
centralized control system from Tesla or orchestrated through Tesla would then determine precisely when the best time is to charge the car, and the best time effectively being the cheapest, because literally there is a one-for-one relationship between supply, demand, and price. And when it's super cheap, or dare I say at times negative, that's when it should be going, well, we're going to suck as hard as we can for those few minutes that it dips negative, and then relax later on. So it's the great thing with EVs is, well, really all cars are becoming this, but EVs increasingly so, or more so. They're all internet connected. So in fact, again, saying back to, I was predicting that the installation of EVSEs will be regulated so that, they have to be compliant. Well, another means of getting around that is they could be dumb EVSEs, so dumb chargers or power supplies, if the car that's connected to it is intelligent. So the government could, again, say something like, well, if you enroll your car into our grid aware program or whatever, and great things too is the cars could have adequate metering so that you don't have to have sub-meters and work out, all the different charging aspects.
You go to that door
report
and turn the outside light on.
the car could report what it's basically what it's been drawing, and you could get a credit or a debit or something against your power bill. And the great thing about that is you could do that at your workplace. So wouldn't it be nice is if you could be directly invoiced for the power you consumed, no matter where you consumed it? Wouldn't that be an innovation? So that you could go anywhere, and rather than them trying to collect money off you or whatever, you could be billed directly, and whatever meter you drew that power through would automatically be credited, so that the owner of that meter wouldn't pay for that power and wouldn't have to recollect it or account for a fringe benefit or whatever, etc. There's so many ways technology is so much easier.
Do you know, Mike, it actually occurs to me that's how I thought the scheduled charging was going to be when it first got deployed as a software update, because I thought, oh, that's awesome. I'll tell it I want it to be charged by 7 a.m. and then it will just work out the amps between when I plugged it in. But it doesn't. Frustratingly, it waits until 2 o'clock in the morning and then goes, right, I'm going to charge it full bore 32 amp. Well, it's like, well, I might be camping, so I'm like, well, I want it to work out cleverly, based on the amp. And what was the other thing as well? It was like, and the other thing is, I think Pete said something along these lines of like, if you're going to go away, make sure that your charging connector is actually working, because our S is 10 years old now. It's got a bit of a dodgy connector that I probably should get fixed by Tesla at some point. But sometimes, it tries to charge and then just doesn't. So it could get to 2 o'clock in the morning, go, right, I'm going to start charging now. And the car says, no, I'm not going to take it because I've got some parameter that's out. And then you're not going anywhere. So, and it's so frustratingly easy that they could do that. Work out an average. And also just power here in Frio fluctuates a lot. So in terms of voltage, so, even that ability to adjust amps on the fly, like it does with the charge on solar, would be great. And it's kind of annoying that they didn't. But I've thought the same thing, right?
Yeah, because mine's sort of the opposite of yours, Richard. Because we do maybe 10 to 15% of our battery on the days that we go out. We don't actually go out every day. And so, I've taken now to put using the schedule to kick it in after 10 o'clock. I like to see that. I'm still a bit nervous about it, so I'd like to see that it's come on, so I'm still awake at 10. So I see it's come on, so I'm going, happy. But as you say, it charges whatever it can take at full bore if I let it, and it finishes by 2 o'clock in the morning, because it takes about 4 hours to do 10% or something at 2 kilowatts, the standard 10 amp plug. But I could knock that back to 5 amps. I could do that now, and it would take longer. It wouldn't actually achieve that much because, it's nighttime anyway. But for people at work, they're, as you say, they're the ones who can actually make the big difference, because they're plugged in with it doing nothing during the day, whereas we're actually using ours during the day when we're using it. they're the ones that can really pull from the solar peak. And so, this is where, there's a cost, but it depends on the cost of batteries and whatever. Could you distribute it out, which is why this battery rebate's coming in, so workplaces can put the stuff in. Sparkies will get a bit of work in the short term, but, I think that's the way of distributing it, because distributing the power is much better than putting huge batteries in.
Well, without, let's just say, I've said this a few times, I know a friend who has a fair bit of solar on his house and quite a bit of battery storage. Like maybe this friend has 23 kilowatts of panels and maybe 44 kilowatt hours of storage and maybe a couple of EVs. And this friend manages for 9 out of 12 months to pull effectively nothing from the grid, nor give anything to the grid for that matter. And it's only in the depths of winter.
That's not quite true.
And in the depths of winter, does draw a bit during the solar peak when it's 8 cents per kilowatt hour and gets by, and in the limit, every house could be self-sufficient for 9 months of the year. And then it's only in the depths of winter that you need, obviously, wind augmentation and, whatever. So none of stuff's hard.
The only problem I'm hitting, sorry for Mike who's got his hand up. The problem I have with single phase retail is you just can't put enough panels on the roof to achieve that. Like,
yes,
if I've got aircon, pool heater, car charging, dryer running, it's just not enough.
Yep. So what the regulations, apart from Pete's proper suggestion of there should be a completely deregulated market with an absolute multitude of tariffs, and one being literally the cost plus tariff, and that being if the cost is negative, well, we take a margin off. If the cost is positive, we add a margin on, and you are exposed to the 5 minute, whatever the 6 minute interval is of volatile pricing, and you then put in place apparatus that can take advantage of it or not, whatever. The other thing Western Power should do, or the state government should deregulate solar, in that there's no reason why you can't have as many solar panels on your roof that you can fit and have as much inverter capacity as you could possibly ever want. Again, with the guardrails that if you do that, the mandate is thou shalt have zero export or zero net export. And as long as you can assure that, and with electronics, that's a no-brainer, then there should be no limit on the amount of solar that you want. So if you want to knock yourself out and you've got a 200 square meter house and a couple of 100 square meters of roof, you can fill it with solar panels, which basically cost it's 40 cents a watt for solar panels. You can use them as pergolas, as rain cover or whatever, shade, and knock yourself out with inverters, and just have the stipulation that you have zero net export. And as long as you have that, you should be able to put as much solar as you want, and no one should be able to object to it.
It shits me you can't do that. It's so frustrating. We don't get paid anything for anything we export anyway. So I wouldn't care. I'd cover every possible bit of roof I could.
Yeah, if you want to.
They let you do that. But the reason why they don't let you do that is, let's say you have 100 kilowatts on your house, and let's say, thousands of people do the same thing, and all of a sudden there's a big cloud that comes over Perth. All of a sudden you've got all these houses pulling a huge amount from the grid. So basically the inverse of feeding power back into the grid. Now, if you had proper market tariffs, and you obviously have devices linked. I mean, it could be a little Raspberry Pi with a bit of clever software. It wouldn't even have to be a Powerwall or a Tesla or another EV or what have you, or a clever inverter. But anyway, if you had dynamic pricing, market pricing, then that would definitely be a be one big way of providing both a carrot and a stick to prevent.
Well, something, if there's zero net export, what you could say is, we'll let you have your 5 kilowatt panel or your 8.3 kilowatt system or whatever. If you want to go large, then you've got to have a minimum of 10 or 20 kilowatt hours of battery storage.
Exactly.
Which will ride you through that cloud bank.
Yep.
That's what they.
And then go, if you have at least 10 or 20 kilowatt hours of battery, then you can guarantee you need to have a boundary meter, a smart meter, and you can guarantee, or the system guarantees, zero net export. Then you should be able to go as many kilowatts as you like on your inverter and panel capacity.
And this is a regime that they've already had in place for over the 7-8 years at least of the Northwest Interconnected System. So if you're in, I don't know, Carnarvon or somewhere, and you want to put in a solar system, and they do have a capacity for each town, and it's publicised. And if you're at that capacity or near it, there's only that much solar that you can put in without what they call a smoothing solution, which is exactly what you said. But to take up that, that transition period when there's a big cloud overhead. Because in the Southwest Interconnected System, we're not too bad, even though we're an isolated grid. But the NWIS is, what we are times 10. The problem is a cloud comes overhead and they've got to turn on all these gas-fired generators, and some of them take 5-10 minutes to reach spinning reserve. So, and in that time the cloud's been and gone. So that's why.
But no, Pete. If you had your own, if everyone had their own battery storage, why would that be an issue?
Yeah, it wouldn't. No, that's right. Yeah, it wouldn't. It wouldn't be an issue then. Yeah.
So that's why you need to mandate batteries.
Mike.
Yeah. So I just I put my hand up because it's like a related but different question. So our house, for example, has a roof that's a bit wiggly. So we've got virtually no north facing. We've got a little bit of east and west and a lot of it south. But on the old X yesterday or the day before, I saw something coming out of one of the states in the States. They built this village and they have these Tesla tiles on the roof, and the whole place was powered from that. And because the reason, like the solar panels here are all much too large for our roof to fit in the little angles and things that we've got. But a Tesla roof might be okay. Do they have that in this country?
No.
No. Okay, that answers that then.
No. Well, there's a house around the corner from me that's actually it's in my same street actually, that has solar tiles. Not many of them actually. Clearly another brand, because they're not Tesla because they don't look quite as good as Tesla ones. But yeah, in short, Tesla definitely don't have tiles, and they're horrendously expensive. To be honest, what Americans pay for solar power, solar equipment, is outrageous compared to what we pay for in Australia. It's chalk and cheese. It really is.
Good to put it in here because we have a lot of sun in most places.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you still can do a paper mache of panels, and in fact, I might do something that I rarely do. Bloody, that worked. Anyway, so yeah, look, solar frustration. Amber Jade, we've done all your homework for you. We've given you some homework to do. You need to modernise the grid, modernise EV use of the grid, and also modernise the WAV network, please, while you're at it. And just say yes. That's all you need to do.
Actually, on that one, I missed the first part of the show, but I did specifically look in the latest budget, or Googled up, or attempted to Google up, what have we got in terms of charges coming in the next budget? Is it
big fat zero?
A big fat bugger all. So yeah, right.
And don't forget, they've already promised back 2.5 years ago to produce a 117 location national fast DC highway implemented by the NRMA, who in WA have implemented precisely zero, and in the Northern Territory have had a good start, but they're not finished. And now there's a new election. I don't even know if any of that stuff's still proceeding or whether they've lost interest, if they've worked out that maybe it's cheaper for them not to take the money and have to add extra money. Who knows? But
I have emailed my local MP about the WA EV charging network and my federal one for the NRMA. I await their responses.
Yeah.
Did someone say crickets?
And Liberal are going to announce in the budget tomorrow, the opposition budget, that they're going to halve the fuel excise.
Dumbasses.
They need a budget for some more MPs.
Right. There you go. And obviously something that's going to happen in the next couple of parliaments is there will be a road user charge, obviously, and it'll be federally based, because that will be irresistible.
In the budget just gone, WA got 2% of the roads and transport budget of the whole of Australia.
$35 million out of 1 point something billion.
Far out.
2%, and our land mass is only about half the country.
Third.
Oh no!
But they're looking after us.
A third.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't finished the WA yet.
Did that road user charge? Why is it not just calculated on your rego, like just on what the vehicle is? Just go, okay, assume 15,000 k's a year for everyone, based on what the vehicle weight is, and that's it. Done. Easy. Don't need to do anything complicated.
Yeah, that would be the simplest. In New Zealand, they actually do
they prepay
a sticker system. They do stamps, and you have to prepay up to, I think it can be as little as 1,000 kilometres in advance if you really are conscious.
Sounds like an absolute pain.
I'm actually sorry. I'm going to jump in and I'm going to challenge the whole idea of user pays on things like roads, because that effectively forms a tariff, I guess, on everything like our food, etc. So somewhere like WA, where your wheat bix come from out in the middle of nowhere, all of those wheat bix go on very heavy vehicles across our roads. Okay, granted, yes, we should. If we could use trains, maybe we should be using trains. But at the moment, they're going on big heavy vehicles. So your road user charge should apply to most the heaviest payers of the road user charge should be your wheat bix coming to your front door, which is going to increase the price of your wheat bix, and all the people that are providing those wheat bix, that all the farmers and the rural people that are making this stuff, just to go to the hospital, just to go to buy 2 litres of milk, they've got to drive 400k round trip. That I'm not sure I count that as fair, for one, but for two, it's going to increase the price of everything. I'm not entirely sure that the whole idea of user pays is a great idea for our roads.
Take an average. Because if you just take an average, then it's like, well, those people that need to go that far, they're not penalised.
Yeah, which is the whole idea of putting it on the rego, and I'm really not convinced that user pays is the best option for things like our roads. I mean, we don't use user pays on things like Medicare and our hospitals, and we all quite like that. I'm not entirely sure that roads should be any different.
Yeah, and as a pensioner, I don't want it average because I don't use the road that much.
Yeah, I understand. So some people win, some people lose.
Well, Mike, you should get a
discount. I think as a whole of society, what lifts all of us up is that you flatten it out, and you flatten out the tax essentially, because that's what a road user charge is. It's a tax, whether it's levied as a fuel excise or not, it's still a tax. Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I guess the problem is in the eastern states, for example, they're only far too used to being ripped off with toll roads, which is the epitome of user pays and being ripped off.
Yeah, and I really don't like the idea of user pays for things like roads. I consider that a public service, and the people that most need the roads are the people that are least able to afford it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right. It's been a big show. I call it quite a feisty show, but it's good. It's feisty good. It's not all shows are vanilla. Sometimes they're a bit spicy. So bring it on, I say. Now, given we've had such a spicy show, Pete, how would you pour some nice, calming, cool oil on those troubled waters to see out this awesome show?
Nothing troubled about it. It's always good to have healthy debate, productive.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
As always, stay safe, stay sustainable, and stay ahead of the curve.
And the best way to do that is buy a Tesla, join TOCWA, and ask us anything about accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and I really do look forward to seeing you on next week's episode of TOCWA's Ask Us Anything. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thanks,
See you
Harold.
guys.